Hi guys, in today's video I'm going to go through my top 5 investing mistakes. Let's go! So all across the internet it's so easy to find out about success stories and people doing so well, but we don't often hear about people that have done things wrong. So I thought I'd make a video sharing my top mistakes that I've made in investing. Now, all of these mistakes I'm about to share are mistakes in my personal opinion. Of course, you may well understand each point differently. So my question for you this week is, what has been your biggest financial mistake? I'll be really interested in reading through and see if we can learn together to help future investors not make the same mistakes that we did. Let's not waste any more time and get on with mistake number 1. Not investing in the most tax efficient way. Now, although most of this video is going to be aimed towards stocks and shares, to be honest, I didn't find stocks and shares straight away, which is actually my next point. So instead, this mistake comes from my years of peer-to-peer lending. Now, for any of you that don't know what peer-to-peer lending is, it's basically when you lend your money to other people or businesses that need that money to maybe complete something like a property development. They then pay you back an interest amount for lending them that money. Now, the best thing for that type of investment would be to wrap it within something called an innovative finance ISA. But if we're also talking about stocks and shares, you want to make sure that you're wrapping your investments within either a stocks and shares ISA or a SIPP. This is going to make sure you're investing in the most tax efficient way, which ultimately is going to lead to more money in your pocket. Mistake number 2, not investing in the stock market soon enough. So this is one you will hear across the internet all the time. I wish I'd started sooner. So if you're lucky enough and you're watching this video and you're still in your teens or early 20s, my top advice would be just get started. Personally, I would pick something with lower risk and nice diversification, like a low-cost index fund. I know there's a lot of hype right now about cryptocurrencies and individual stocks. To be honest, it's not my style of investing. I'm much more just a broad diversified index fund that sort of buys a bit of everything. I personally didn't start investing in the stock market until about 2 or 3 years ago, so I missed out on years and years of fantastic gains. Now, obviously, we all know the stock market has done incredibly well over the last 10 years or so, and it may not always have been 10 years like that. However, to talk about that point a little deeper, I'm going to head over to the calculatorsite.com and use their compound interest calculator. So let's say I started investing when I was 18 years old, which is 13 years ago. Let's say I started with an initial deposit of 0 and I averaged 10% interest rate. Now, this is quite a high interest rate, but this would have been achievable over the last 13 years. I'm going to say that I was depositing £1,000 monthly, which I know from my figures I would have been able to do. Luckily, I lived with my parents for many years and that allowed me to save quite a lot of money from my paycheck each month. So we're going to hit calculate and get these figures of how much potentially I could have earned in that time. So my investment could have turned into £315,930, almost £160,000 worth of interest. That money would then sort of be in there working for me, so that money would then be compounding, so I'd be earning interest on my interest. Obviously, by starting only 3 years ago, I missed many years of growth. Luckily, don't get me wrong, I did invest elsewhere. I invested in investment property and they have done extremely well for me, allowing me to reach FIRE at 30 years old. I've got a video coming up about that very soon. On to mistake number 3. Now, this one is one of the ones that may be either a mistake in your eyes or it might have been a massive positive. But I believe I made a mistake investing in a high dividend yield paying index fund. What this index fund was, it was an index fund made up of many high dividend paying companies. Now, often, but not always, high dividend paying companies are usually well established companies that maybe don't have quite the growth potential as other sort of up and coming companies. Often dividends are being paid because they're making such consistent regular profits. They don't really need the extra money to keep driving in for expansion, and instead they share it with us, the shareholders. Now, there is no doubt about it that I would have done better if I concentrated on an index fund that was aimed towards growth rather than income. But of course, we all make mistakes, and that's why we're here learning about mine. Mistake number 4, concentrate on low fees. So I do say this on the channel all the time, but the very first platform I used when I started investing into stocks and shares didn't have the lowest fees that I was able to get. I was actually paying a trading fee too, so every time I bought monthly I was getting charged an amount. Now, considering I knew my strategy was to invest every single month, of course this was a fee that I wanted to quickly avoid. Now, I eventually ended up with Vanguard, who offer monthly investing with no dealing fees. This is going to be a big cost saving over the years I'm investing, and that money I'm saving is instead being piled into the index funds to hopefully compound more. You may well be thinking, well Gary, you can get people even cheaper than Vanguard, and I agree with you completely. But of course, partly it is down to personal preference too, and I take great comfort that Vanguard is such a major player, and I trust them holding such a large sum of money for me. One final thing, there is a really useful article from the Motivator blog talking about different platform charges. I'll put a link to that in the description below. And then finally, mistake number 5, pushing myself too hard. So when I did finally discover investing in stocks and shares around 3 years ago, I was putting every single penny I could into these investments. When the pandemic started and my business had to close down, I realised that I was probably a little bit too invested and I should have had a bit more of an emergency fund. Now this was a rookie error, it was a mistake on my part, and it was from me not being able to sort of see this pandemic coming. Before that I had years and years of work lined up, so I knew I was going to do okay, or at least I thought I was going to do okay. It's taught me a big lesson. Make sure you have a good, decent emergency fund. I would say about 6 months worth of expenses. I know it's quite a lot of money, but it's really going to help you get through these rainy days like what I had with the pandemic. Apart from that, I hope you enjoyed today's video, and I look forward to seeing you again very soon. Take care, guys.